I am not an employee of McDonald's, but I wake up every morning and wonder how I'm going to add value and solve problems. Dr. Walker, are you still in the room? Dr. Walker described in a unique way her role and responsibility is being able to be thrown under the bus. We know that's not the case because he had tremendous value to the system. Our role and responsibility is for our clients, is to help them build a road that they don't have to worry about the bus running them over. The bus ain't going to slow us down. The bus isn't going to get in the way. It will be a nuisance, but we'll build the road so that people can go as fast or as slow as they want in a responsible manner based on trust and principles. Because y'all got that in spades. So that's the end of my talk. Yeah, they wish is right. Let's see if I can operate a simple mechanical device. All right. The job I was most qualified for was the one I started out my career on. I'm blessed with a great family that teaches me every day. And so I am one of the luckiest guys in the world. Why verified sustainable beef from McDonald's? Verified sustainable beef is really important in the journey. This is a journey, and this journey began 6-7 years ago. Because McDonald's believes that it's really important to verify the outcomes. Not the practices, but the outcomes that you deliver on every day. And to enable you to make and take credit for continuous improvements. And to recognize when those outcomes aren't ideal, because sometimes they aren't ideal, that you work with each other and that we work with each other as a community. Because it is all about community. That collective synergy thing, we translate that into community. We can count on each other to help each other out in the good times and the bad times, to talk to each other about what's going right and what's going wrong in a candid manner. And to do it in that triple bottom line simple system of economics, social responsibility, and environmental environmental sustainability. We have a goal, and McDonald's will purchase verified sustainable beef in 2016. That is something that's very purposeful, and we did it for a reason, because if you don't set goals, you don't ever accomplish anything. And so that's a very important goal for us. And we picked Canada because we know and we have faith in you to be able to help us execute that goal, and we'll do it together. And then we can celebrate it. The other goal that we have on this is to inform the Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. If y'all haven't been involved in it, get involved in it. Talk to people who are involved in it. Ask them why they're doing it, what they're doing, what their vision for success is, and figure out if it fits with yours. If it does, get on the highway. Go as fast or as slow as you want. Get involved or as aware as you want, and then take some actions. Why sustainable beef? Why verified sustainable beef? I'm not going to repeat all of the highlights of things that have been said or incorrectly attributed to beef production, but it's a good thing to fill a vacuum when all that's in there is a bunch of BS. And we have faith in you folks as being part of the solution on an ongoing basis, that your voice, your actions, will speak louder than their words. Why Canada? You're a bunch of leaders. Yes, I am from the South. Yes, we have screwed up with that cool thing. That was stupid. We're going to get smacked for that. If logic prevails, which would be a miracle for us these days, if logic prevails, we'll back away from that. For as many times as we have little antagonistic discussions with each other about you guys being socialist and us being capitalist pigs and all that good stuff, really we're a part of a community. We are a North American beef community. Sometimes communities behave well with each other and sometimes they don't. I like to focus on how we behave well with each other and what the future looks like. the pieces of the puzzle that you put together with BIX, yes, BIX isn't perfect. There are so many things wrong with it, and it's been screwed up, and blah, 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 all that good stuff. But look at the team they've assembled. And in the short time, the team that they've assembled built on a solid framework that you guys invested in to make it real. They've already demonstrated it with 2 sets of deliverables to us that demonstrates the platform is solid and can enable us to take action and accountability and traceability. And we already have the 3rd set of deliverables that we'll talk about in just a minute here that are very real and will demonstrate Canadian leadership in traceability to perform chain of custody calculations that demonstrate you know what's going on a national basis. And that's very real and that's very valuable. And it's going to be more important than ever tomorrow as compared to as is today. And I recognize, and we recognize, that the U.S. is behind in this area. Y'all have a Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. Y'all have demonstrated leadership in that way. And that aligns with the investment that now over 80 organizations across the globe are committed to. And you were one at the table early on. Back in 2010, people from CCA, people from cattle feeders, people from all aspects of Canadian beef production were down in Denver when Cameron Brewitt, who will be speaking later on today, was up in the front of the crowd telling people what the vision for success looked like, what continuous improvement means to the entire food chain, and how that'll be translated into leadership demonstrated on a global basis that's practical, that's reasonable, that's science-based, and that enables people to do the right thing, to take credit for it, and sets expectations for continuous improvement. Not continuous improvement that is unreasonable, but continuous improvement that lets you excel at what you're excited about. And it lets you celebrate that. And it recognizes if something's out of bounds, it's out of bounds. And just like a good community, you talk to each other about when it is out of bounds, and you set real expectations about it. Why Canada? McDonald's purchases 100% of its product, 100% of its product to service every single one of its Canadian customers every single day from Canadian beef producers. That's why Canada. All the product that goes out the door to customers across Canada comes in on the hoof into JBS at Brooks or to Cargill at High River. Those 2 plants, the trim from, a portion of the trim from those plants goes up to Spruce Grove, the patty plant. If y'all haven't gone through a tour of the Cargill plant up in Spruce Grove, the patty plant, or JBS and Cargill, do it. You'll be real proud of what you've seen. And 99% of you, I'm sure, already have. I'm just kind of stupid. I'm from Iowa. Y'all have VBP, the brother to BQA. And y'all have VBP, and you set a great example about how that looks forward, not just looking backward, but how that looks forward. Y'all have a restlessness to the way that you lead up here. That's why Canada. Growing forward to EFPs, environmental farm plans. Y'all have a solid base. NFAC. Mr. Whedon, thank you very much for your contribution to NFAC. Is NFAC and the codes of practice perfect? Absolutely not. But does it set a good set of expectations that you have developed as a group, as a community of multiple stakeholders to build on and move forward with? Absolutely. That's why Canada. Why participate? Ask some of the producers who have been participating. The real reason why you should participate in this pilot project, which is incredibly biased by me, because my livelihood is staked on it, is that you have an opportunity to lead, you have an opportunity to share, and you have an opportunity to learn. No, you aren't going to learn how to raise cattle. You already know that. But you're going to share with people downstream, and you're going to share with each other how you're doing it, how you're achieving the outcomes that we're looking at, and why that makes a difference to you. And we're creating the platform. McDonald's is creating the platform for you to do it. Whether you're a cow-calf or a backgrounder or a feedlot manager, doesn't matter. Stephen Hughes, you can read what he said after going through his verification. These ladies and gentlemen have much more meaningful things to say than I'll ever spew to you in a lifetime of mine. What the verification look like out at Chinook? Okay, granted, I'm not the world's best photographer, but some of these are kind of dark. We sat down with Mr. Hughes, and in fact, we went out to Longview Steakhouse. If any of you have been there outside Longview, had a great steak. He brought in a wad of his records and he sat them down because he wanted to start by demonstrating what was going on through his verification. And in a verification, there's 3 ways that you demonstrate your outcomes. It's through interviews, observations, and records. Records can be something as simple as images of what goes on in your operation. It could be something as simple as your VBP records. It can be something as simple as your environmental farm plan. And then through the interview process, the verifier brings out what that really means and what you deliver day in, day out. When you have challenges, how do you address those challenges? It enables you to express yourself and have a discussion with, in fact, Gordon Stevenson, who, wasn't he secretary here a while back? So Gordon is a cattleman that understands when you go through a verification, it isn't an audit. This is John and Tracy Buckley's place. John and Tracy Buckley, when they opened the door and saw us standing there, they thought, oh my gosh, what have we gotten into? You could see it, the look on their face, and we understood that. But we talked to them. We sat down at their dining room table. We talked about the different indicators and everything that they do to make things happen, and then we toured. And it was a real healthy, fun discussion that took place. Yes, there were some situations where we talked about subjects that weren't exactly warm and fuzzy. And we asked questions that were very pointed to clearly understand what the outcomes were that they'd work on and deliver on. Sherry Copperthorne Barnes at CL Ranch. This is why she thinks it's important. So how do we do verifications? It doesn't matter where you start. You decide where to start. If you'd like to start talking about records and documents, you can start there. If you'd like to start by touring the verifier on your operation, you can start there. It's yours to own. It's yours to lead. It's yours to participate in a dialogue that gives and takes and shares information. And during that process, the verifier is writing things down. And the way that this works is you raise your hand and say that you want to be enrolled. We have 100 producers across Canada that have raised their hand to be enrolled. And what that means is that they've asked for more information. That doesn't mean they're stuck in something. That doesn't mean you bought timeshares or anything like that. But that means that you're interested and we've sent you information. It can have a pre-verification, which we've done over a dozen of those. And what that means is that we come out and we walk through what a verification will look like on your operation so that you can understand what you're getting yourself into. You can back away at that point if you're uncomfortable with it. But the purpose of a pre-verification is to gain comfort and to ensure that you're bringing forward your best suit when you're going through a verification. You then schedule a verification with Where Food Comes From, a uniquely qualified firm that does things like this in the food chain all across the North America, and in fact has global experience. They perform the verification, you receive a verification report, and then you'll be benchmarked confidentially so that you can see where your scores ladder up against your peers. Then we perform a mass balance calculation, and all that means is that we count the number of head that started at a cow-calf operation that's been verified, moved to a backgrounder and a feedlot that was verified, and then were processed at a packing plant at either Brooks or High River. The only way we can do that is through the competency that BIX brings us. That's another example of why Canada. And then in April of 2016, we're going to have a celebration where we're going to celebrate the good, the bad, and the ugly of what we learned. Because this is a pilot. And it isn't going to be perfect. It has far been from perfect. But it's progress. And we're moving forward. The role of where food comes from, there's a picture of Gordon going through a verification with Sherry. Jim Riva going through a verification with Colleen Mackey over at Van Ray. The purpose of where food come from, or their role and responsibility in here, is that they go out and individually go through the cow-calf operations, the backgrounders or feedlots, and the packer processors, and they've even verified the patty plant already. What's the role of BICS? The role of BICS is to maintain chain of custody and to demonstrate that in a professional manner. Again, so we can identify the calves based on the RFIDs linked to your premise number through CCIA and processed through BICS to be able to tell us that those calves were on verified sustainable beef operations. What's a verification? Gordon comes on out. He visited with Graham Finn over at Southern Livestock, and this is what Graham had to say. We had a very, very clear vision of success based on the principles that the Global Roundtable set over 6 years ago. That this is outcome-based. It's not an audit to a standard. It's an outcome-based verification of outcomes that are delivered on. There's a real difference. Is anybody an auditor in this room? Very good, because I was about to insult you. Auditors have a unique role in society. It's very important. It's similar to a proctologist, except with numbers. They deal with digits in a different way. It's a very important role that they play. But the reason I bring that up is that a good auditor is not necessarily a good verifier. And we learn that in working with and helping where food comes from calibrate. We've gone through several of their best auditors that are professionally trained and do a fantastic job of auditing. But we found that it was not in their skill set to be a good verifier, because it's a different skill set that requires give and take and discussion and understanding of the implications of the answers to what the outcomes are that are achieved. Our pilot is based on an outcome-based indicator set that we've developed through arduous multi-stakeholder engagement. We've done over 60 revisions based on solid input from producers in all levels of production across Canada, based on subject matter experts, academicians, and government authorities, based on inputs from even NGOs. NGOs that are highly collaborative and reasonable, and even a couple that are pretty darn tough to get along with, but have a point of view that we listen to and respect within reason, and that it's all balanced, because we are part of this social fabric, and it's about collaborative synergies. We built and we're focused on this information sharing, of which BICS makes it possible, including carcass information that our good partners at JBS and Cargill, I'm sure, will help us share through the pilot. Not all 12. We aren't expecting all 12 of the previous indicators that were shared before when the system was running, but we will be, I'm confident that we'll get a few of those coming through. We've built a threshold-based scale where 1 equals entry, 3 equals achievement. If y'all are golfers, that would be par, and 5 is excellence, where continuous improvement is obvious and apparent. It's those things that y'all are really good at on your place and that you're really proud at. Some people that involves your grazing management, your high-intensity short-duration grazing management, or what practice that you want to call it. For others, it's low-stress animal handling, and for others, it may be the genetic side of what you contribute to. But you can see those restless places and those continuous improvement systems that are in place. It is not like a typical audit system where it's prescriptive, practice-based indicators, and it's not focused on compliance with a standard. That's not what this is about. Continuous improvement is very different than compliance. Documented procedures, does that help solidify? Yes, that helps solidify the confidence that you're achieving outcomes, but it's not the sole indicator and the reason for being. We do not talk about non-conformance, and we do not talk about pass-fail. We do talk about a barrier to entry. Because producers were loud and clear to us when we started going through this exercise, and we said, well, what do you think? Pass, fail? How does that look? No. And they said, yeah, but you can't just let everybody go through the system and say, yeah, you're verified sustainable beef. And we said, okay, why not? They said, because some people are screwing up. And when you need to tell us if people are screwing up, you need to tell them very candidly if people are screwing up so that they got the opportunity to improve. And that's a tough one. That isn't easy. But it wasn't just producers who told us that. Everybody involved in the system agreed with that. It's a delicate balance. Both of them have third-party professionals that come out and perform evaluations through interviews, observations, and records. Our threshold system right now, and this is tentative until we get things finalized, which will happen after June 23rd and 24th, the good folks at Deloitte are coming in and working with Canadian Cattlemen's Association and delivering a sustainability report based on their view of how you develop indicators, which is very different in some ways and similar in some ways to the ways that we've developed the indicators. But that happens on June 23rd and 24th. In the middle of July, we start sending those verifications out to people. We've gone through 19 verifications already, 14 in cow-calf operations, 4 in feedlots, and 1 in the Spruce Grove paddy plant. All of those have been scored based on the existing set of indicators and the existing scoring system. We are not going to send, and nor have we sent any of those out to the people that have gone through the verifications. Has anybody in the room gone through a verification yet? Okay. If you'd had, you would not have been from Saskatchewan. The average indicator score for critical indicators must be 3 or greater. The principles and criteria, the principles established by the Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef are natural resources, people and community, animal health and welfare, food, and efficiency and innovation. Those were developed through an arduous process of stakeholders from across the globe, including Canada, developing those. Producers, subject matter experts, NGOs, the whole beef community built those out. And then the whole beef community built out a set of criteria that's related to each one of those principles. And they then said, okay, roundtables, y'all build out the indicators that are most specific for you and that are most relevant to you. And so that's what we've done through stakeholder engagement. Very, very important. Here's an example. The GRSB principle and criteria, the principle is animal health and welfare. The criteria is adequate feed and water are provided to meet cattle's physiological needs. The indicator that we've developed is cattle have access to appropriate quality and quantity of water. So then some people are saying, well, what's appropriate? Well, this is not a McDonald's standard. That's not what this is. This is a set of indicators that are outcome-based, that are based on your local and national practices and programs. In this case, Appendix 2 is your codes of practice. And number 2 in Appendix 2, and I forget what page that's on, but it's under nutrition and feed management, and you'll find, well, right there, page 12, dummy. You'll find what the expectations are. So we're using the work that you've invested in, we're using the systems that you've invested in to establish these expectations so that we aren't inventing it. It's not up to us. A barrier to entry, if there were observed intentional ongoing failures to provide adequate quality and quantity of water to cattle, there would be a barrier to entry. And the verifier would say, hey, am I seeing this right? Am I hearing what you said correctly? This is how you plan on, this is how you consistently get these cattle water or don't get these cattle water. And this is a critical, because it's highlighted in yellow, indicator. So what that means is that on a 1, an entry level, there's an awareness and a commitment to provide access to appropriate quality and quantity of water. So that's just entry level. And no barriers to entry would be apparent. For a 3, which is where you got to be to have achieve that threshold level, demonstrated performance towards goals through interview and or observation. Cattle have access to appropriate quality and quantity of water. There are relevant records, but there's not evidence of continuous improvement. And then continuous improvement is described here: measuring, monitoring, reporting, verifying. So that's what it looks like across 31 indicators for cow-calf, 29 indicators for fed cattle. If you all want a copy of them, just holler at me after this and I'll get you a copy of them, your own. You can review them. Several of you already have, and several of you have already raised your hand in Saskatchewan expressing more than just an interest, and we're actually scheduling a couple. We have a couple of verifications that are in the process of being scheduled in Saskatchewan. When it comes to those 5 principles that we discussed from the GRSB, there's a total of 5 natural resource indicators, 7 community and people, 11 for animal health and welfare, 2 for food, 6 for efficiency and innovation, for a total of 31, 14 of which are critical. For fed cattle, you can go down the list and you end up with 29. An example of where they differ, let's see. Animal health and welfare. Animal health and welfare, we have a body condition score for cow-calf operations. Obviously, we don't have that for fed cattle. That would be an example of how they differ. So how are we doing? As we said, we've got 100 total people that have volunteered. 46 cow-calf operators have enrolled. A total of 71 operations have enrolled and said we're interested. 4 of them are both cow-calf and fed cattle. 6 of them, we don't know who they are. They just raised their hand and we said, hey, could you send us information? It was like an email that came in, and we replied back, sent them information, tried to find out who they were, and they're like the wind. I don't know. So 2 processors have already enrolled. One's already been verified, as we said. We're scheduling the verifications for the 2 slaughter plants. 3 have declined. 1 person had some personal situations they were going through. It's not the right timing because of the stuff going on with their family. Completely understood. Another person said, I was interested, but nah, it doesn't look good to me. And another person is darn right pissed off. They said it's onerous. It feels like it's being jammed down the throats of producers. And we told them that we respect their opinion. Would love to sit down with them and actually talk through and have a conversation about it or a dialogue about it to share each other's thoughts and opinions. And hopefully that'll come about. But to date, it hasn't. But that's all right. Not everybody has to be on the bus. Not everybody has to drive on the highway. Not everybody can run a clicker. We've got 14, as I said, verifications complete in cow-calf operations, 4 in fed cattle, and 1 plant. There have been no verifications with barriers to entry because the scoring system is still under review. Total operations engaged is 100, and nobody has achieved verified sustainable beef status because we're still waiting for that Deloitte work to anchor our indicators. Y'all are represented so far by 6 cow-calf operations that have raised your hands, 2 fed cattle operations or feedlots, 1 that's both, and 2 that we don't really know what the heck you are. So you got 11 in the hopper. If anybody else would like to test the water and ask more questions or get enrolled or set up a verification, just let me know. Be more than happy to help you out. We recognize that it just isn't about producers. We recognize that it's about a Canadian beef community. And because of that, we believe that veterinarians, genetic providers, nutritionists, breed or forage associations play a critical role. In that critical role in this pilot, we want you to help identify and enroll participants, prepare the participants for verification, support the participants post-verification, and host and join in learning, shared learning workshops. This is an opportunity for Saskatchewan Stockgrowers Association or anybody in this beef community or all of you all to collaborate together. And in fact, we're going to provide up to $20,000 to members of the Canadian beef community to support this pilot project. And we have a request for proposals that will be submitted out in the public for any day now. We'd like you to set clear expectations for how the money will be used and what outcomes will be achieved. Describe your alignment with the pilot objectives, those 2 pilot objectives, purchase of verified sustainable beef in 2016, and inform the Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. Because when the pilot is done, the pilot is done. The handoff of the report, the information, what was learned, the good, the bad, and the ugly, is handed off to Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. We'd encourage you to be part of that community that takes that and influences what does and doesn't happen with it going forward. We think that's really important. We're just starting the flywheel with this pilot because we didn't want to sit and wait and wait and wait and wait. Progress, not perfection. So, nutshell, what does it mean? Free unbiased verification for you. No, there is no premium that's offered. We're buying trim out of 2 plants. We have no clue. We aren't doing a cooler sort, so we have no clue other than through the tracing and the tracking of those cattle. So there is no premium. But McDonald's is paying for every single one of these verifications from the professionals at Where Food Comes From to come out and work with you. We'll provide you with personal and benchmark reports. We'll share your story, as everybody has talked about today. We'll share your story on a global and a local and a national basis. We'll send signals to domestic and international markets through your leadership, and we'll inform the CRSB. And eventually, it'll enable you to make sustainable continuous improvements. Timeline, we're moving forward. Verifications through August, and then we're finalizing those indicators there in July, and we're delivering producer reports based on that will go out through April of 2016. We have our celebration down in April of 2016, date and location yet to be determined. We'll have field days and workshops to collaborate with producers and people like you and others throughout the food chain. So, our pilot, your questions?
Howard Campbell. I was wondering,
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. I apologize.
Howard Campbell?
Thank you, sir.
Okay. You had a display up there, and you were asking for veterinarians, forage producers.
Yeah, anybody.
All of that? Okay, yeah. As a producer who buys feed and uses a veterinarian, does all, if I wanted to be on that, everybody that I deal with has to be on that, do they not?
Not necessarily. That's a good question, but no, not necessarily. And in fact, when a verification is performed on your operation, the verifier, in this case Gordon, will come out to your operation and he'll sit down with you. If you want, because there are verifications that have been performed where the veterinarian is present. The feed company representative was present. I don't know of anywhere a Gen X provider would have been present, but they can be there. But you as the producer represent everything that goes on, and you'll bring information. You'll bring your vet-client patient relationship, and you'll say, hey, call Dr. such and such at here to be a part of that. So no, it can be a whole community discussion, or it can be you and your team, or you and you.
But if you don't have all of those people verified, how can you be verified?
Because the verification is of the outcomes that you deliver on your operation. Again, ours is not a system that is focused on auditing your practices nor your suppliers' practices. That is not our intent. That's a clear and significant difference between an outcome-based focused system and a practice-based audit. Huge difference. And that has been a part of the discussion going backwards to Cameron, 2009, 2008. Very, very significant commitment by all the players. Good question.
Thank you.
So we can take questions for Matt and or for Deb. So.
Harold Martins, I ranch just north of the city here. I want to just say that I appreciate McDonald's being involved in this discussion rather than your competitors saying that they have the answers to everything. That's to start with. And then I think most of us got a McDonald's flyer that offered cheaper meals and stuff. And you had in there about the Canadian industry being involved in production. And each one of those pages, and I just want to compliment you on doing that as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We got a good team. I'll pass the good news on to the whole team.
Yeah, I also really appreciate McDonald's interest in this. I co-chaired the first verified beef quality starch here thing, and it was a hard sell. Most producers treated it like some kind of a boogeyman, you know, and under the bed and associated with costs and costs alone. My experience in keeping records has been like a old 45 records we used to buy when we were teenagers, had 2 songs on it. The one song is what you're trying to sing, and I'm really appreciative of that. The most important song to me is my own song, and I know that I have raised my level of expertise and management on my ranch. Now I have a set of records. I know what works and what doesn't, and I'm really pleased that we're going forward with this. It's been a long time.
Thank you, sir. If you aren't one of the 11, I'm going to dog you until you are. If you aren't one of the 11 that signed up for this, I'm going to dog you until you are.